Hey, here we are. Let me fix my camera a little bit. Back in action. It is summertime. We're here at least this week. We won't be streaming next week because I'll be back in Korea. And so it's really difficult to stream from there. Maybe I'll try to someday at some point, I'll try to do something and we'll see if we can make it happen. I should, right. I'm sure Jeff will talk me into it. Hey, so we do have a guest today who's going to hop in. He's an American, but he spends part of his time in Ecuador. So anyway, he's gonna hop in, and he and I are gonna have a conversation. And in the meantime, this last week I was a guest on another podcast called Live from America. Was that it, Jeff? Live from America, I think it was. And
that was correct.
Or Live in America. Yeah. Anyway, we and so we are putting up on our channel just a short segment from that. I was talking about of the many numerous different topics that came up. One was cancel culture, and I like. It's nice being interviewed. You know, like I really enjoy interviewing my students, and I get to hear what they have to say. But it's also live from America. Yeah, there we go. And but it's also nice to have people ask me questions. Just let my mind go wherever. But one question they asked was about cancel culture, and so, you know, I don't think much about what I think about this, but I think one thing that I was saying pretty clearly was that it's not as big of a problem as we imagine it to be. And the reason is for a very similar reason that, you know, violence and crime aren't as big of problems as we imagine them to be, right? So if we are only paying attention to the headlines and the front pages and, you know, this kind of thing, or only paying attention to areas of life or certain geographic areas where there's a fair amount of crime and violence, then we think that, you know, violence and crime are out of control. But the fact is, you know, for the vast majority of people, you know, unless you're living in one of these very high crime areas, for the vast majority of people, there's really not very much crime, nor do most people stand to be victims of crime. And even living in fairly high crime areas doesn't mean that you're likely to be a victim. If we do, there are a lot of data on the lifetime chances of being a victim of a violent crime or a nonviolent crime and so on. And the numbers really are not extraordinarily high. And so I guess that it's a way of saying it's quite similar to cancel culture, right? If I think about all the things that people say, like the really sort of edgy things that people talk about and provocative things and potentially, you know, just problematic things. I mean, I don't know, like what it would be that anybody could see anything as problematic. And we think about the number of people who are kind of truly canceled, right? I mean, I think there's some kind of an attempt there are a lot of attempts to cancel, but I don't even know about that, right? Like people say things. Like people say things about me or Social 19 or whatever. Like there'll be 5 or 10 comments in a video or whatever, but that's not canceling. And there have been a few attempts of people to so-called cancel me or the class or something, but it's really not very often. And I don't know. I just question whether talking about things like cancel culture as a widespread problem is really doing justification or service to anybody, since I don't think it's really a widespread problem. Anyway, just a thought, just putting that out there. And because I think there are a lot of things in the world that we assume to be true because lots of people talk about it, but it's really difficult to decide whether it truly is true. So I don't know. I question myself sometimes. I question myself sometimes, wondering if I'm too unwilling to make strong statements, or if I'm too willing to appease, or if I'm not able to really, I don't know, critique or something. But anyway, hey, here's just a really quick preview of the video of this podcast that I was on. I'm just going to put the link up, and then we're going to bring our guest on. So. But I've also had the experience where, someone puts a tweet out, and then, like 100 people or 500 people like the tweet, and maybe 20 or 30 retweet it. And then it's like, oh my God, you're getting canceled. No, I'm not getting canceled. Like, it's not. And just ignore it. And I think the vast majority of attempted cancellations, if people would just ignore it, it would go away. Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that the self-censorship that descended on hundreds of millions of people.
Yeah. Myself. I censored
all of us. Was it so oppressive and cancerous to a free society?
Nobody got offended 15 years ago. It was like sometimes my classroom, I'd be on a roll and it was like a stand-up comedy club, but that doesn't happen anymore. So, okay, okay, well, whatever. That's all right.
No, I think you're just trying to. I understand where you're coming from.
I'm trying to justify it.
Yeah. I mean, no. You're finding the silver linings, and of course there's silver linings. I've spoken to editors of important magazines, who will say things that they would never allowed to be written in their magazine.
Isn't it awesome that Elon Musk paid billions and we still call it Twitter? Like, you think he's gonna be?
See, he'd like to cancel us.
I can't say.
Okay, so that's cool. I like that. I like that. It reminds me of that. It was a fun conversation. Hey, let's bring our guest on. Today.
The video that is from is going to be released tomorrow. I linked the full podcast episode in the chat, so you guys can go ahead and watch it already.
Oh, very cool. All right. Yeah. Larry, how are you? Wait, hang on. We're muted. Jeff.
Hey, Larry, it looks like you possibly are muted. On the bottom, there's a little microphone. Just should be able to tap.
Okay.
There you
Hear
are.
me now?
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay. All right. What I was saying is I'm fine, and thank you for having me.
Yo, it's lovely. It's nice. It's nice seeing you. Nice meeting you.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Hey, so what I want to do, I mean, I want you to introduce yourself, and I'll throw a couple things in that I think are important, and then I want to have a conversation, really, not about your new work, your new essays, or your new book that's being edited right now, but about your other one, Growing Up White in Black America. I think you have such a fascinating story and a very uncommon story. So, so just to start from we'll go fairly quickly. I mean, don't go step by step, but like, tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you were born. And
Okay. I was born in Chicago Heights, Illinois, to a family with Southern roots and marginal education levels. We moved into a predominantly Italian neighborhood for a couple of years. And then while I was in the first grade, we moved out of that into a black area where all the white families were moving out. So our family was one of 4 families on that block. In my life, elementary, high school, college, I went to entirely all predominantly black schools. Okay. So when I was growing up in black areas, like, you know, the white boy, I had to learn to what they call in the hood, nudge. In other words, to fight, to defend myself, which was not infrequent, sorry to say. But I did have many black friends, and sometimes they would come to my aid, okay? But my memories of living there were some of the best times in my life. I played on a little league team. I was the only white kid on there the first year. The next year, a couple others joined. And the manager was Bruce Hodges. His grandson was Craig Hodges, the NBA star and the black activist, actually. So I was fortunate enough to be associated with a lot of black kids that went on to really do well in life. Even in those days, there were 2 parents in the family.
Yeah.
You know, the black and the white. The fathers worked and the mothers were home. So, you know, that was a good thing.
Hey, how did you and then you went to college for a couple of years you went to an HBCU or an all-black college or?
Yeah, I went to Chicago State University, which is a PBI doing everything it can to become an HBCU. Okay. When I attended, I have a bachelor's and a master's degree from Chicago State. When I attended, the student body was 95% plus black. It is the only state-supported institution in Illinois that's never had a white president. All the other state universities, including the flagship, the University of Illinois Champaign, have had black presidents. And I believe, if I'm not wrong, currently the president is black.
You know, okay, so then, and you just, I mean, I just kind of walk through as a sociologist, right? Sort of, as my wife would say, getting a picture of your sociological address, she calls it, right? So then you dated black in high school and so on, dated black girls. Ultimately you married a black woman, right? Your wife was black.
Yes.
So like you have lived, and you have two children who are biracial.
Yes.
So the fascinating thing is, man, just for me, and the reason I wanted to talk to you, the reason I find you so fascinating is, it's just like you have an experience in life that very few people have. To have very few white people have. Let's say to be completely integrated into black culture.
Yes.
At the time that you were, right? Like even today, it's like it's not super common, but at the time that you were, it's like super rare.
Yeah. You know, I was a police officer too, and I was assigned to a black district, 100%. And I was on a policeman for 12 years. I had a black partner for 8 of those 12 years. And that is a story in and of itself that we don't have time to go in here. But, you know, I can, if you read my book, A White Guy's Walk Through Black America, I go into detail about intimacies and crime, police corruption, all of it. It's all in between those pages. And I associated, for many years, we lived in Hyde Park, my wife and I, and We lived in Hyde Park, 5527 Hyde Park Boulevard, right across the street from the University of Chicago. And I associated with many elite Black persons, okay, at a particular lounge that was a watering hole for a lot of people. And we lived maybe 4 blocks from the Obamas. They lived in Hyde Park also. So I have been down in the hood for many years and in the middle, and I associated at the highest levels, I believe. So, and a product of Chicago and its suburbs, I can, every day was racial in some manner.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, I think that you had the experience that many Black people have, who will say, like, wow, man, every day I'm not all Black people, right? But people will say that, man, every day I'm thinking about race. I'm dealing with race. It's just part of my day-to-day life. And will you live that experience just from the inverse direction? Yeah. Hey, you used the word hood. When you were a kid, what did you call it? Did you? You didn't say hood, right?
No, we didn't know. We didn't know what that meant. We were busy playing baseball and touch football and marbles and baby in the hole, all that. And it was the neighborhood I lived in. We called the East Side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there were 2 public schools on the East Side. The school I attended was Lincoln. That was the good school. The other school was Franklin. Okay. That was the bad school. That's where all the Black folks who were living in the housing projects and all that lived. So me and my buddies, my Black buddies, we were afraid to run into them. Okay. Because they were what we considered to be, they jump on us and all that kind of stuff. All right.
Yeah.
So interesting. I recall a little incident for you. Halloween. So I don't know. I'm maybe 10 years old. Me and a few of my buddies, all Black, were out trick-or-treating. Some teenage Black guys were walking towards us, and they stopped us. And one guy said to the other, he says, "Let's take the white kid's bag." The white boy, he called me. And they snatched my bag. They didn't touch the others. Okay. Just, life is, you never know, right?
Yeah, just that. Yeah, just those things. Yeah. That's what, it's so wild. Hey, so tell me give me one story about being a police officer in the areas, the neighborhoods where you were with a partner. This was back when, for people who don't know, this is back when police would drive two to a patrol car. Now it's just one. It's rarely two. But what are a couple things that stand out about how you either were interacted with people differently, or how they treated you differently, or what you saw that was different than what other people saw? Do you have anything that comes to mind?
Yeah. And I hope I'm not being too out of line here, but I can recall many times working in the district and bricks coming through the window of the squad or on this side scared the heck out of you, believe me. Okay. And then that was the time of the Black Power salute.
And
the hunkies and all that kind of thing. It was an interesting, dangerous time. And there was even dissension within the police department between the Black and white police officers. Okay. And I got stuck. Many of the white officers didn't really care to work with me because they considered me the lover. Okay. And I don't want the end lover. Okay.
Yeah.
So, if here I worked with the guy and he was great, but he lived in the district, and he would buy up old foreclosed homes and cut them into sleeping rooms, and that was against city ordinance. Every Friday was payday. So every Friday we'd leave the station, go to his house in the district. He would get a bunch of chains with padlocks on them. I drove all that day because that was the day he collected his rents. And we'd go to one of his buildings. He'd go if the renter wasn't there, he rented them by the week. He would go in, take a TV or something, a bicycle, whatever was there, bring it out to the squad car, put it in, padlock the door. We'd run back to his house and drop this stuff off and then return. Now, he had all of his ledger books on the dashboard of the car.
Yeah.
If we got a call, he'd get mad that we'd have to go and answer the call.
Yeah.
Hey, one thing about him, okay, he did good police work he was respected. When he told a person, get in the car, he only told them once, and he had a reputation that they knew that, okay?
Yeah.
I will tell you, quite frankly, what I see out there today, all the guys that I worked with, if they were here, they'd all be in jail because they wouldn't put up with what's going on now.
Yeah, that's so interesting, man. That is so interesting. Hey, so you mentioned that some white folks didn't like you, but you must have been, okay, so there's this, how would I say? There are like what I talk about as a sociologist. There are signals that we give out that pretty quickly we can size somebody up, whether they're comfortable around, let's say, race issues, or they're not comfortable around race issues, right? It must have been pretty clear to Black people with whom you encountered that you were really comfortable being around Black people. Or do you have a sense of that or not?
Yeah, I was used to it. I mean, it wasn't new to me. Black women were not new to me. Okay. Yeah. And I tended to give the guy who's having a hard time a break if I could.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I had a reputation, I think, that I was pretty fair. But if you came at me with all that shuck and jive, okay, and tried to sell wolf tickets, okay, and loudmouthing and that wasn't going to work with me, okay? But I tried to be fair. I think I was fair. I had such a reputation, and I knew how to weave in and out among them.
Yeah, among people. Right? Yeah, like that. Yeah, I can see that. You know, that's the thing for me. I don't know if you probably see this as well. I'm sure you do, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say about it. But in this world that I'm in, right? So you watch some of the videos from Social 19, and you have a sense that I'm pretty comfortable with a wide range of issues and people really from all over the world, right?
I watch you every chance I get.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you see that you just know when you come across someone who's trying to say the right thing. I'm talking right now about a white person in particular, right? But who's trying to say the right thing. Like they don't want to be perceived as racist or bigoted or something. And they want to do right. You know, they want to be good and they want to not discriminate and they want to, they want to treat people fairly. But they don't know how, and they're nervous. But they're nervous about it, and so they don't know exactly what language to use and how to say certain words. And I watch people stumble over sometimes. Instead of saying, they'll kind of get caught between Black and African American, and they sort of aren't sure what word to use. And so I think like, wow, it must be so fascinating for you to be this white guy who is has had this experience your whole life. You're far more comfortable being around poor Black people than half of American Black people who are in the middle class on up, who just don't spend time around poor Black people and themselves would not be comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I have to tell you, Sam, I'm not optimistic in today's racial climate. Matter of fact, I'm very pessimistic. I think, and this may be hard for some people to get their hands around, but when you talk to white people, average white people, okay, they feel that Black people today are more racist than they are. Okay? And I think a case in some respects can be made for one professor from Alabama A&M responded to me on one of my essays and told me that he didn't disagree that Black folks were racist, but he did admit we are very prejudiced. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a soft pedal in today's America.
Yeah. Well,
today's America.
Wait. So the reason I think, hey, by the way, just really quickly, I just want to clear something up. The years that you were a police officer were in the like late 60s, early mid 60s, late 60s?
1968 to 1982.
Yeah, man. Oh man, those are some serious years in Chicago. So wait, were you policing during the 68, the Democratic Convention? That would have been just when you started.
Yeah. Right? Actually, I was in Chicago Heights, Illinois, which is a southern suburb of Chicago.
Yeah.
But it is majority Black. Okay. When I was there, it was probably 40%. Okay.
Yeah, got you.
Yeah. But it was our police department was the same thing as the Chicago Police District.
Yeah, got you.
Same environment. Okay.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, I want to go back to the idea of prejudice versus racist.
Okay.
I always push back. This kind of assessment started. I first started kind of hearing it. Hearing it from students. When I hear things from students, that means that's usually like 8 to 10 years behind when it's out kind of in the conversation, right? Because they have to get it when they're in junior high and high school and that kind of thing. But this idea that Black people can't be racist, but they can be prejudiced and so on, right? And because, racism is the very definition of racism is prejudice plus power, and Black people don't have power, and so therefore it can't be racist, kind of thing, right? And I know the ways in which academics and activists, they come up with definitions like that because we have nothing else to do but just use our big brains to think of things to argue about. So that was one of the arguments that people put out. And my take always is like, yeah, okay, I'll buy that if we want to define it that way, that's fine. But racism is such a stronger word than prejudice. And so it's almost like I hear, and I still hear it sometimes from students today. It's like, oh, well, I'm prejudiced because everybody's prejudiced, but not everybody's racist. And so people hide behind that idea that, well, my people can't be racist, but we can be prejudiced. And so that's where I push back on that. I'm like, no, that's Yeah.
There's, today specifically, when you see where Black college students, let me make one thing. I am totally against so-called HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. I have redesignated them is race-specific colleges and universities.
Oh, right. Okay. Race-specific. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
All right. My wife attended, it's a senior moment right now, Grambling State for 2 years before transferring. My youngest son attended there for 1 year before he transferred to another university. And I have visited several HBCU so-called campuses. To me, when they promote HBCU, that's a stop sign to white kids.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah, it really
Right?
is.
That's a
It
stop
doesn't
sign.
have to, except white kids like you who
Yeah.
grew up in an environment with other people. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Yeah.
Yes. You know what? If you're like me, Chicago State's on the south side of Chicago, not far from where I lived. Okay. So for me, it was convenient. It was affordable, cheaper than the other state universities. That's another thing. It carried the curriculum that I was interested in. So why wouldn't I go there?
Yeah.
That wasn't going to stop me. Now, I did have rolling of the eyes and the talk under the breath and this and that. You experienced that. Okay. And I recall when one of the very few white students got in a physical fight, which is very unusual, on the campus with the black kid. The university police came and they just stood by. But when the white kid started winning, then they interceded. Okay. And when I was in high school, if you'll recall, it was the Black Power time, this and that. And they ravaged down the hallways, beating up white kids. Okay. And all the white kids would run. They wouldn't help the other white kid out. They'd all take off,
Yeah.
So,
people have this idea that this is this history of race in certain parts of the U.S. at certain periods of time that was just incredibly volatile. Like people really today don't have a sense of that, of what it was. And the degree to which, like the stories that you're telling are these stories that, are really profound. And people don't have a sense of that. Huh. Hey, but did kids, so go back to college though, right? So they're at the university, right? I want to go back to the sociological thing. Like how quickly did people size up that, but hey, this but Larry isn't like average white kids. Like Larry's different. Like Larry's one of us. Like how quickly do you think people saw that in you?
You know what? I knew how to play the game. I mean, I could talk the lingo and I could strut. Okay.
Because all your friends, you were just doing what all your friends were doing.
Yeah.
Right.
But I could carry that on later on. Later, after I left the police department, I had a lounge in the black area. The name of it was Stuffs. Okay. All right. And that's another story. That's in my book, A White Guy's Walk Through Black America. Okay. But I could do the lingo. I knew the signs. I knew when they were trying to talk around all the other white policemen or whatever. I knew what was going on. And I knew the resentment, the bitterness, the envy, the jealousy, the pure hatred. I knew it. I could spot it readily. Okay. That's not all black people. Okay.
No, that's right.
But I think that is certainly increased. Okay. In these years. And that's why I unfortunately have to say I'm not optimistic. And my sons are in their 30s now. And we have some really interesting conversations, particularly about race. They're light complected. Their mother was dark complected. And, they catch hell too, excuse the word, but they catch hell from darker complected people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so, this situation has been with us since our founding. Okay. To some degree. And when I think of America, I think of black and white primarily.
Yeah.
That, of course, is changing now with Hispanics more than 18% of the population.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And as a matter of fact, if I may, I'm coming to you now from Pueblo, Ecuador, a suburb of Quito, Ecuador, which is the capital. So, you know, it's
wait, how did you end up down in wait, what town are you in?
In Pueblo.
Pueblo. Okay.
Pueblo. It's Puembo. Pueblo. It's
Pueblo.
Right outside of Quito.
Is it south by the airport, or is it?
It's closer. Yes, it's between the city and the airport. Yes.
You know, I lived in Cuenca in the south. I spent a lot of time in Quito.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So you spend half the year down there?
Yeah. My wife died. Okay. And I had a business at that time, and I sold the business. My two sons wanted nothing to do with the business. They were doing well in their professions. So I wrote each one a little check, and I traveled for 3.5 years around the world. I'm in Miami at the airport on my way to Bogota, Colombia. And I happened to notice this nice looking lady walk by, and she smiled, and that's all I needed to go from there. But a long story short, I've been here now about 11, 12 years. She now is a retired pediatrician, and she has 3 sisters. They're all doctors. Her father was a lawyer and a socialist who was an admirer of Fidel Castro, which he had visited Cuba many times, because in those days, Ecuador was a socialist country.
Yeah.
It's on the change right now.
Yeah.
But that's basically it, how we met. And she has a daughter that's a doctor at Baptist Hospital in Miami. That's why we're in Miami sometimes. And I'm Fuqua of French descent. So I love to get to Louisiana as much as possible, because I'm among my people. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. How's your Spanish, by the way?
You know what? Not as good as it should be. And part of that is by just plain hard-headedness. And her family members all speak pretty good English.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. They sent their kids to Europe and Belgium and U.S. to university. So So
you know, it's funny. I'm in that, but I mean, I speak Spanish, so but
bueno.
I'm in that place right now with Korean, though, kind of trying to learn some Korean, and I'm not stubborn. It's just, it's such a complex language, and I don't have a lot of time in my life.
Yeah.
So
you know what?
Hey, but go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
One of my best friends is a retired professor. He taught at Prairie State College, which is a community college in Chicago Heights. He taught Spanish and French for 35 years. He told me I'm hopeless.
Yeah. Okay. Take his advice then. Just accept it and don't fight it. Yeah. Hey, so going back to your, you have this idea that you're kind of not so hopeful about today, but I'm thinking that, man, the things that you've experienced about race and racism and inequality in the United States and discrimination, right? The things that you've seen, man, I think I have this idea that if people could go back into the late 60s and 70s, right, especially the first half of the 70s when we were really trying to pull things together, people would be really optimistic today, right? I mean, you remember like when the Black Panthers were standing on the steps of Cornell University with their guns, right? I mean, like, oh my God. Yeah. So I actually have this idea that if people could go back to those times, or if we will go back, sometimes I'll go back and I'll read the headlines of the New York Times for like 2 months in a row. I'll just sort of look at the front page of the New York Times and just kind of go through it really fast. And I think, damn, we were in really bad shape back then.
Yeah.
But you have the idea. I wonder if it's because you lived it. And so all the things that you experienced, that you've seen, it was just sort of a part of your life. So it wasn't as big of a problem as people would imagine it to be. If today you took the average white person, you just put them in your shoes back then, they would be just profoundly blown away and afraid. And so I don't know if you have a thought about that. Yeah.
You know what? Let me hear. When I got out of the military, and this was in late '63, I got a job at a BF Goodrich tire store located at 6215 South Cottage Grove Avenue in Chicago. At that time, 63rd Street in Cottage Grove was probably the center for heroin drug dealing in that. And I worked at this store, and during the interview, the manager, a very nice guy, graduate of Roosevelt University, asked me, was I comfortable around black folks? Okay, because this was 100% black area.
Yeah. Little did he know, right? Yeah.
And I told him my background. I didn't know, but later on, didn't take long, I found out he was one of the two people in my life that have fooled me. He was biracial, okay? Uh-huh. His mother was a white lady, and he was married to a very light, he was, of course, light. His wife was very light, worked for the Chicago Public School District, and he had later a son who became a Catholic priest. But anyway, working at 63rd and Cottage Grove, every day he would send me out to get coffee and that. Here I am, the only white guy in this whole area, 22 years old or whatever I was. And, you know, in having had experiences, I didn't overlook the nice ladies. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, I worked there 3 years before I went on the police department. And it was a great experience for me in the racial context of America. And so, you know, I think I'm reluctant to be very direct or maybe blunt, but I don't hold back in my book. Like our acquaintance Glenn Lowry in his book Late Emissions, he unraveled his life. He's a Chicago guy, and we have many parallels in life. And he caught a lot of heck from his kids. I don't know if you saw his interview with his son. Okay, I experienced that and more. Okay,
yeah.
So it's but when I see not the request, but demands for black dorms, black grads, black cultural centers, you know.
But listen, but that was going on that all started when you were in college, right? In the late 60s, early 70s. Like that's when today, listen, I'll tell you as an insider, I will say, you know, honestly, we have like, say on our campus, we have about 1,600 students of African ancestry, right? So they're either Black American, Caribbean American, or Caribbean, or they're African. And so somewhere, including international students, it's probably close to more like 18 or 1900. Okay. They'll do like you know, students, they all have these little ropes that they wear, and they're for certain organizations that they're part of. Like we have an organization, World in Conversation, and each year, each graduation will buy these ropes, and then students wear them. So you'll notice increasingly in college students, they have their gown, and they're all wearing the ropes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so they'll often have these little small graduation ceremonies for people in their organizations. So on our campus, there'll be one for Latino or Hispanic students. There'll be one for Black students. There'll be, this kind of thing. But you know what? I went to one not too long ago for Black students because one of my students was there, and I went. There were about 40 graduates there, and so you got almost 18 or 1900 Black students at the university at any one time. 400 of them, let's say, are graduating, or 500, right? And you go to the ceremony, and there's like 40 students, and the university didn't sponsor it per se. They sponsored it themselves, So a lot of that stuff that looks a certain way on the outside, on the inside, it's really kind of, kind of like your life, right? It always, probably if I could see video of what was going on in your neighborhood back when you were young, for me, it would be like, oh my God, this is a horror movie. But for you, it's like, well, it's just life, So anyway, that's a thought about some of that.
You know what? Let me make one thing clear, if I may. I'm not against HBCU, meaning I don't want them to just go out of existence. I want them to integrate.
Yes.
I'm an integrationist.
Yeah.
Okay, I've lived that life. I want to continue to live that life. My thing is, my experience is they intentionally evade racial integration or diversity. Many of them will use foreign students, but when you check into that, the foreign students are from the Caribbean or Africa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
well, what do you think? What do you think about this, though? Right. I think that probably many more white students, the only white students who would really imagine going to an HBCU, or Asian students or Latino students who are not Latino but of African ancestry, right, would be people who grew up around a lot of Black kids, and it would be people like you. Otherwise, you wouldn't. Maybe they wouldn't have to have this same kind of fully, grow up inside of Black culture, because you literally were in Black culture everywhere you turn, 360 degrees, right? But I think it would have to be white people who had such a deep experience that they would just feel like, oh, okay, I can feel comfortable here. And very few white people have that experience. So even if HBCUs fully open the door, well, even when they do, they really recruit white students, and a lot of them offer scholarships to white students because they're minority-based scholarships, but they can't get people to apply. That's one of the issues that's going on.
But here, see, my feeling on that is somewhat different, Sam. I'll take Chicago State, they recently opened a pharmacy school. Great. But they couldn't get enough Black students to open it. So they reached out, and they got some white, Hispanic, and many from the Middle Eastern students.
Yeah.
Right? All right. And what I find, unfortunately, is when most of these 105 or so historically HBCUs are state-supported institutions, okay? Some are private, but they all accept state and federal money.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Okay. But what I find is they will only reach out, as you say, when they want, they want to go from one level in the NCAA to the next.
Yeah.
And they need to expand their sports teams. And if, a lot of Black kids aren't playing that much of soccer and what have you. So then they go for white students. Okay?
Maybe it's not that they go for it, but they start pushing. It becomes actually a public issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They need
Yeah.
them. Right.
Maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. And I think that
Yeah.
maybe it's just because every university wants more students, except those that are, who reach their enrollment quotas every year, which increasingly is very few of them.
Yeah.
Everybody wants more students, but it doesn't become a major public issue until we kind of hit certain walls, right?
Yeah.
Hey, so I want to, I think I have a couple more questions for you,
Okay.
and then we're gonna do a hard stop at 4.
Okay.
But I definitely want to, at some point later in the semester, as we move forward, I'd like to talk to you again, because when I do at some point in time, I'm going to do a couple classes that are really more in line with the new book that you're working on.
Okay.
And then it'd be really nice for you to watch that class, and then
Okay.
you and I will have another conversation like this.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be quite nice. Hey, tell me what's one kind of big. Tell me about, what do you see in Ecuador between the mestizo or the white population, because most of the elites are light skinned, right? Are white. What are you?
Right.
Yeah. So, but what do you see about the kind of the different treatment between whites and people of white and European ancestry and the indigenous peoples in Ecuador? The Indians.
Well, in Ecuador, the black population is around 7%, so they're not a real issue here.
Yeah.
But as you say, the Indigenous, that is an issue. Okay, my lady, her 3 sisters are doctors. Their husbands are all doctors. Okay, one is a cardiologist, and when Correa was president, I don't know if you are Rafael Correa.
Yeah, Rafael Correa. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He played the race card.
Okay? Yeah, definitely.
All right. He played the race card. As a matter of fact, he attended the University of Illinois, Chicago.
Yeah.
Rafael did. And his father was arrested in Chicago for drug dealing and went to prison there. Okay. Very anti-American. Very.
Yeah.
Okay. After he left the country, he's in Belgium now and won't return, because if he returns, he's going to get arrested. But he played the Indigenous card to the T.
Yeah.
Okay. And he, of course, changed the Constitution a couple times to stay in office. Okay. And we have had incidents. My lady's son is a gynecologist here. Okay. And during one of the periods where the Indigenous were up in arms, blocking the highways and all that, they stoned his Mercedes. Okay. All right. There is, and we have Indigenous employees on our compound here. Okay. They have their issues, and it's growing, and they are growing in power. Most of the elites here are of either German or French and some Italian descent. Okay. Large German historic, European descent German here. But another thing on immigration, when Maduro did his stuff in Venezuela, we were flooded with people from Venezuela.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And they were on every street corner.
Yeah.
Okay. Begging for money or selling things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And prior to that, my families here were totally against what the immigration situation in the U.S. and they were saying, "How could you do?" Now they have completely changed on that.
Okay. That's wild. Yeah. I have my wife and I have an apartment in Bogota. And so we were there, right when the Venezuelans, because people went through Bogota on their way to Quito and Guayaquil and so on.
Right.
Yeah, it was a different. Do you see racism? How much racism do you see against indigenous peoples? Like, how much do you see?
I don't see a lot.
Yeah.
I don't, because the the classes here stick together. Okay. Like my lady and all of her sisters and their husbands, their kids, they hang around with other people of European descent, college educated, that kind of thing. There is very little interaction between the Indigenous and the others.
Well, I guess that's probably an indication of that. It's almost like it's not racism. It's really almost invisibility.
Yes.
Yeah. What I see with indigenous peoples. Yeah.
So
that's kind of, and I was thinking about one day I took a bus from Quito to Esmeraldas.
Oh.
And when I came down,
black areas.
Listen, it was a former slave port. And when I came down the mountain and into Esmeraldas, I thought, oh my God, I landed in West Africa somewhere. It was really such a fascinating experience. Hey, listen, so it's good. It's good talking to you. It's definitely good meeting you. It's really nice.
Can I just give you one little other thing? Just to reiterate how I played the game. Okay. My wife and I were in New Orleans for the Mardi Gras. My wife had been a lovable for 2 years, the Chicago Bulls cheerleader. She was in excellent physical condition. Excellent. And she had one of those bubble, whats. Okay. And she was in shorts. It was in summer. We're standing in line at a hot dog stand in New Orleans. The workers were black guys. So as we kept moving up, I noticed they were noticing us. And they were talking back and forth. Well, me, knowing the signs, I slid my hand down on her butt. She looked at me and, what are you doing? Because we're in public, right? And I put my big grin smile on. Okay. Just play the game. Okay?
Yeah. Okay. That's really funny. Yeah, that's really funny. It's, it really is. That's this whole world of race that when you notice it, right? Like, you've lived in it your whole life, right? When you notice it, it's really absolutely fascinating. Yeah. I have so much enjoyment over the stories that people can tell, Yeah. Hey, well, listen, definitely good meeting you. Really nice meeting you. And I am going to get a copy of your book. It's hard for me these days. I don't have time to read things line for line, but I really do. I enjoy your stories and what I've read, excerpts and so on. It's really fascinating. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You know what, Sam? I would send you a copy. If you could hang on maybe 3 weeks, I'll be back in the US. I'll send you a copy.
All right. Awesome. Okay. All right. We'll do that. All right. Yep. All right. Very good.
Okay.
All right. Listen, make sure you sign it though. All right.
I will. Okay.
All right. All right. Listen, so we will talk.
All right.
We'll be in touch.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Larry. Be well. All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Hey, so listen, really cool conversation. It's so fascinating for me, when I meet somebody like him, and I just met because he sent me an email, actually maybe like a year ago or so. And then fairly recently he sent me another email, and just, I immediately just could sense like, okay, this person has a really cool story. And I like that. I really appreciate it. It's like talking to students, what students I pick out, and the ones that we start the conversation, and I just want to keep it going because, I find it so fascinating. All right, listen, I'm going to I'm going to cut out here. I'm going to definitely try to do something from Korea, but it won't be at the same time because I'll be in a time zone that's 13 hours ahead. So I'll see if I can't just pop my phone out. I'm taking my wireless microphone. Let me see if I can pop my phone out and figure something out at some moment. But in between different tasks that I have to do. So I'm going to head out. Be well, everybody, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. All right. Thanks.